Assalamu alaikum. In this video we are going to create a cutscene animation and we'll see how we can create that. And in this case you can see that we have this level, and if we want to create an animation, we want actually the player come to certain place like IGI game. If you reach to some area, the endpoint, the vehicle will move, and you can see the vehicle animation, and then we can move to next level by pressing any key or button. So let's see how we can do that. In this case we have this vehicle already at the end point, but this vehicle is actually load group and it is duplicated several times, so maybe we have some problem with this. So we can delete this vehicle and we can add the vehicle by ourselves, and that vehicle will not be duplicated, so we may not have any problem with that. So let's go to military assets, and here we have models, and from models we can pick our model. So I will just pick the same truck, and we can place it anywhere here maybe, and we can place it on the ground exactly like this. And I will just bring it here in the bottom, and also we need a timeline asset. So for creating animation we have different different procedures. We are using timeline animation here, and it is the built-in functionality. So we have timeline asset here. So if you don't see this tab here, timeline, you can go to window and animation, and you can sequencing, and you can click on timeline to get this tab here. Okay, so now we will right click here and we will create an empty object, and we will rename this object as a timeline, or any other name you can add. So I am just adding timeline, actually timeline I just have written timeline. Okay, whatever name you can assign, it's not a problem. Also we need a camera for this timeline, so that we can, when we play the animation, the camera will switch to timeline camera. Okay, so we can create a new camera here, and I will just rename this camera to to timeline camera. It's not necessary to change the names, just for better understanding I just changed the timeline camera, and you can see the camera position. We can just switch this position to something like this initially. Okay, so I think here maybe the initial position. Okay, so now we will select the timeline, and here on timeline tab we will create a timeline, and we can create a new timeline anywhere in assets area. You can create the new folder for timelines as well. I will just create a timeline here, and let's save the timeline with similar name or any name you can assign. And now you can see that we have timeline animator here. Now we will just create a new animation track here, and in this animation track we can drag drop this truck here, and you can see if we select the truck, you can see we don't have any animator controller. So whenever you want to apply some animation to any object in the hierarchy, you have to add animator controller. Okay, animator controller, it must be here. Also with the camera, you can see the camera, we should add animator controller. So with everything, whatever object you have, you want to add animation, you have to add animator controller. So now we will select animator, this timeline of asset, and we will add this truck here. Okay, so now if we want to add animation, we will click here. Okay, and then we can move the truck like this. Sorry, we will select the truck first, and then we will move, and you can see we have first node here. Okay, now we can move to second frame, like 240, and we can move the truck like this. Maybe we can also rotate the truck if we want. We can move to the another frame. We can move the truck again like this to some point. Also we can rotate it like this. Also we can place it at the right position like this. We can move further, and we can move the truck, place the truck as well, and we can rotate it as well. In this way we can create animation. So if we play the timeline, you can see that we have a truck moving here like this. Definitely for better animation you can create moving tires and other things as well, but I will keep it simple. Also we need to move camera along with, so we can create animation track, one more animation track, and we will add our camera over here. Okay, so now we will click on camera animation here, and now you can see we can select the camera, and we will assign the initial position. Okay, so for example we can start our animation from here. Okay, the camera from here, and then at this point we can move our camera like this and like this, and even we can rotate the camera if we want, like this and like this. Okay, so we can move further, and here at this level we can position our camera like this maybe, and like this maybe. At the another level we can move our camera, and we can actually rotate the camera as well, so maybe like this. And then we can bring it to last frame, and we can move our camera a little bit more. So that's it. So now if you don't need these the clip, we can make it smaller as well, but we are okay with this. And so now if we play the timeline, you can see we have camera transition as well, and the moving truck as well. Okay, so that's nice. So now we have timeline ready, and now we want that if our player reach to some extent, this animation should play. Okay, so initially when we play the game, you will see that our camera, the second camera, may be switched on, so it can happen, and the animation, the timeline animation, will play automatically sometimes. Okay, so for example, if we switch off this camera, let's switch off this camera, and if we select timeline, and here you can see play on awake is enabled. So if we play the game, hopefully the timeline will play itself. Let's see. Yeah, you can see the animation plays with camera. Okay, sometimes if this camera is enabled, even if we play, maybe the timeline plays, because the timeline is enabled on play on awake. So sometime it happens. Okay, in this case it's not happening for some reason, but we will fix that issue. So we can go to timeline, and we can just disable this play on awake function. Okay, now we can write a script so that if we trigger into something, then this animation should play. Okay, so how we can do that? So now we will initially switch off this camera as well. Okay, we will just deactivate this camera so that we don't face any problem. And here we will create our script, C# script, and we can name the script like cut scene maybe, and now we will open this script in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so for playing the timeline, we will add another library using Unity engine dot playables. Okay, so it is the library for timelines. Here we will create some variables. So first variable we need is public playable director. So where it is, playable director, and we can name it something. So for example timeline, and then we can create another object, public game object, and I will name it camera 1 maybe, and public game object, and we will name it camera 2. Also we need a button, so that I will just create a game object, and that will be skip button. Okay, so I will show you that what is the feature of this button. After that, in start function we need to initiate the timeline feature. So here in start function we will say timeline dot get component, and here we will initiate playable director component. Okay, so this component actually lies with the timeline itself. Here you can see playable director. Okay, so now we can create a function on trigger enter. So here I will say void on trigger enter, and definitely if you are specified with player itself, then if we will say if other dot tag is equal to player, then we want to run some function. So here what we want, here simply we will say timeline dot play. So we want to play the timeline. So when we will enter into trigger, the timeline will play. But here we also need some more things. So here we also want to want that camera 2 will be active. Okay, so here camera 2 dot set active true. Okay, so we want to enable the camera 2. Also what we want, yeah, now here we want that after some seconds we want to enable the button as well. Our player will see the animation, and after some seconds our animation will be played. Okay, so also, yeah, one more thing here is that we want to camera 1 dot set active, because we want camera 1 to be false at this point. Okay, yeah, set active false, that's nice. And then we want to run the timeline animation. So here after this function we can create a coroutine function. For that we will create an enumerator, and we can rename name it, so timeline play, maybe like this. And inside this function we will say yield return new wait for seconds. We want to wait for some seconds, and for example we want to wait for 10 seconds maybe. Okay, and then after these seconds we want to play the we want to switch on the button. Okay, so here we will say skip button dot set active will be true. Okay, like this. So now after this timeline dot play, when it is played, then after this we will run start coroutine, and here in this coroutine we will name our coroutine, which will be timeline play, like this. So I think we have everything in place. Okay, so this is our script. So let's see how we will implement this. So at the end point where we want to win, for example at this stage, we will place a cube. Okay, so let's bring our player here, maybe for better understanding actually. So let's place it here, maybe yeah. So here at this stage we have a point at this level maybe. So here we will create a cube, and for this cube we need trigger to be active. Okay, and on this cube we will place this cutscene script. Okay, also we'll make this cube bigger, maybe at this point bigger. And now we want that if we enter to this area, then we will win the game. Okay, so for example this area. We can also hide the mesh of this cube. So here we will add timeline. Here we will add camera 1, which is our main camera. Here we will add camera 2, which is the timeline camera. And then we will add skip button. Okay, so for skip button we can create a button here, UI and button, and I will just focus on this button. We can change the mesh of the button, and I think we have sprites for this. where we have sprites, script sprites. uh, I don't know where we have, yeah, classic RPG, maybe we have some sprites here. So these are icons, parts, yeah, we have buttons here. Okay, so let's go to button, and here for button sprite I will just change the button sprite to something like this. Maybe let's focus it, and you can see that we have text hidden on this text. Let's make it white. But you can see it's not very nice, so I will just delete the text. We will make button rename, and we can make it skip button like this, and then we will move it to right bottom, maybe right bottom. We can make it bigger if we want, and then we can attach, anchor it to right bottom like this. Then we can create a text, and this text we can make it skip button like this, make it white, make it center, make it bigger, maybe 30, and we will make it overflow, and we can make it 24 maybe, and we will make it bold as well. So yeah, that's nice, I think, skip button. So when we are happy with the skip button, now we can just make it invisible. Then we will go to cube, which is our trigger cube, and we will drag drop the skip button here. Okay, so now let's play the game, and now see what will happen. Hopefully we can play the game as usual. You can see we can play the game as usual, and when we will reach the end point, you will see, yeah, that's we trigger, and the timeline plays, transition plays, and the button visible, and then we can click the button to start new level. But you can see that player is visible. Okay, when we play, player is visible. So we can hide the player. So here we will create one more object, game object, and we can say player object, or any other name you can assign. And here we will say that we also don't want to show player object dot set active false. Let's see now what will happen. We will select the cube, and we will add our player here. Where is the player? This is the player. Okay, and we can also search for player. It's the another way of making the player invisible. And here, if you play the game, everything is working absolutely fine, and if you win, you can see player is invisible, the animation plays, and then the button will be visible after 10 seconds. Yeah, that's nice. And then we can click on button, and we want to switch to another level. For loading other levels, the loading screen and other functionality, I already have made the videos in other tutorials. We can use this script, which is actually the load script. I just have added scene loader, not this one, this loading bar script, and we can add our levels. And let's implement this so that you can understand this thing as well. So in UI we can create a panel here. We can name it loading screen, and I will just focus on this panel. We can make it black, maybe we can hide the transparency, and then inside this loading screen we can create a slider. We can delete this handlebar area, we can make the slider bigger, we can change the background color to something like red, and then we have a fill area. We can go to slider, and here you can see value. We can increase the value, we can change the fill area to maximum, and then we can change the color of fill area with some nice color, and then that's it. So now everything is in place. We can also add a text if we want, so we can add a text, we can center align it, we can make it bigger, like 30 maybe, and we can make it overflow, and then we can change the color, and then we can change the font name, like loading, like this, and that's it. So now we can just hide the loading bar, and now we can implement the loading bar. Okay, so for that purpose we can actually create an empty object, and for this object I will name it to loading, and on this loading bar we can add this script. And now we will move to loading bar slider, and we will add loading bar here, slider here, and text here. Everything is in place. Now the last thing, we will select the button, the skip button, and on skip button we will add a function here, on click function, and here we will drag drop this loading bar function, and here we will go to loading bar, and we will select the load level function, and here we will add the index, the level we want to index. Okay, so here you can see main menu is on 0 index, so we will add 0 here, and that's it. That's what we needed. So let's play the game and let's see how it will work. So hopefully we can win the game, and now the animation will play and the button will be displayed, and we can click on button, and that's it. We are moved to main menu. That's nice.